Aoife from Eurogamer, and I'm joined by Martin, also of Eurogamer.
Hello, you sound very perky.
I know, I do, don't I? That's because we've been playing Dark Souls 3 today.
Yay!
Yeah, we went to Bandai Namco's headquarters and got a hands-on with the game. We've both seen it before. I saw it at E3 and you saw it at Gamescom?
Yeah, I saw it at Gamescom where it was playable, although in quite a rough state and
Yeah.
on a PC.
My demo at E3 was not hands-on, but funnily enough, both of those times and the build we played today, they're all the same area, but there were some quite big differences.
Yeah, huge
between all
differences.
three.
It's kind of amazing how much a game can change in the space of a month. When I played at E3, it had like the critical arts singing, which is like the big new feature as part of the combat.
So the name of this has changed a few times, and it's not the only thing that's changed in the last couple of months. But it's been called sword arts, it's been called skill arts, and
Is
it's
it
been called
talents?
battle arts. I'm not actually sure on the specific term because it seems to change every.
I think it's called Talents today as
Talents,
well. Yeah.
really?
Dark
Okay.
Souls got talent.
And Dark Souls got talent. That's a show I'd actually watch. Do you want to explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, although obviously it's still early days of it, and as is always the way of Dark Souls, you kind of need to spend hours to fully appreciate the systems, and
Yeah.
it doesn't lend itself well to like playing it for like 20-30 minute bursts
True.
on a show floor. But effectively, the talents, whatever you want to call them, when you dual wield a weapon by pressing, I think it's L2, you can prime a talent, which is kind of a special attack.
Specific to that weapon.
Yeah,
as well.
specific to whatever weapon it is. And so if you've got, if you're dual wielding like these katana kind of things, or legion scimitars, I think they're called.
Yes.
You kind of do this big whirlwind dance and like whirl into battle.
Which looks really cool, and it's I think they said at E3 that it's sort of designed against low-level enemies, like you couldn't do that against a knight or anything.
And if you do it with a greatsword, which is what I tend to go for when I'm playing, it does this. It basically is this launcher. It's kind of, because it looks kind of weird. You kind of step back and do like a super heavy attack. The animation for it is really long, so you either need to have impeccable timing, not just or you get absolutely tonked. And then you just literally launch enemies up into the air.
Yeah,
and
you can actually juggle them almost, can't you?
Yeah.
A little bit.
It feels weird as well because not Dark Souls isn't exactly realistic, but it's got quite a grounded combat to it.
Yeah.
And it feels really physical and everything feels really grounded. And then all of a sudden when you're seeing enemies, I mean, I think it looks awesome, but when you're seeing enemies being flung like about 10 feet into the air, it looks kind of crazy.
It looks a bit odd, and also if you have, which I tend to do, if you have a lock on, the camera goes a bit whoop, like straight up in the air, which isn't always ideal. But that, I mean, I can definitely see people using that. And your standard kind of regular sword, I guess, you can enter a ready stance.
Yeah.
Where you kind of do like a lunging attack. I mean, like you said, that all of these skills or talents or whatever you want to call them, whatever the Namco Bandai are calling them, they all have quite a long lead up.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can spam them. And there will take a certain amount of skill to use them effectively, but also they require and there's a new MP bar on the HUD, and it actually those effects, like they take a very small. I mean, you could use a lot of them before you run out, but they take a very small chunk of it.
This was like, it's so weird that Dark Souls is the kind of game where today's big reveal was effectively a magic meter.
Right.
And normally that'd be ridiculous, like, oh my god, I can't believe you just revealed a magic meter, but I actually kind of care.
Yeah.
And in the Gamescom build, the talents, battle arts, whatever you want to call them, they were governed by a number system. So basically you had like 20 of them you could use over a certain time, and then it reset every time you die, and that's kind of how it worked.
Yeah, you'd have to return to a bonfire if you wanted to replenish those, whereas this is it's like Demon Souls. There's an actual bar, and in fact, there's new Estus Flasks specific. I think they were called Ash Estus Flasks, which are blue, and those refill that MP gauge.
Yeah, I was going to say Dear Estus, which is a joke, which I specifically had this podcast, but I didn't know that's one time I'm going to put it in there. And I kind of like that system. It's a bit more organic. I didn't actually remember it being in Demon Souls because I haven't played Demon Souls for ages. But it just feels it's nice to have another thing to manage. In some ways, it adds a lot to it. It's a whole new layer, and so it made it feel really different, I think.
I think there will be a lot more freedom where magic is concerned. I mean, the thing is, with the Dark Souls series, the core basic combat hasn't changed all that much, and yet in each new iteration, From have found a way to elaborate on that basic format. So it seems like with the new weapon skills and the magic, this is kind of how they're deepening the systems in this iteration. How important the new magic system will be, I guess, kind of depends on the new spells that they introduce.
Yeah.
I mean, if they just introduce a whole bunch of soul arrow spells again, that wouldn't be particularly exciting. And there are, I mean, we saw today there are some soul arrow variants, but there are also so what did we see? There was a heal. I saw a heal spell, and there was also a lightning spear, which looks great.
I only played with one build, which was the guy basically with lightning spear.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, it'll be interesting to see how players balance, because obviously you can't use a shield and magic. You've got to kind of you got to sacrifice one if you want to use the other. So it's not going to be a straight up. You're not going to be OP. You're going to have to sort of decide which you want to focus on.
It's one of the things as well, because like a lot of people have been playing a lot of Bloodborne this year. And it's really fascinating when you go from Bloodborne to Dark Souls. And I did it when I went from Bloodborne to Dark Souls 2. And by the way, I kind of rate Dark Souls 2 a lot more than most people. I don't think it's obviously on the par with those games, but it's fundamentally a good game still. But anyway, you go from Bloodborne to something like Dark Souls 2 and to Dark Souls 3. And it's like staggering the amount of options you have, and it's kind of overwhelming how many options you have in terms of build layout and everything, because of Bloodborne, which again is exceptional. It's such a focused game in terms of what you can do and everything, and it feels quite limited in some ways. I mean, in a good way, because the focus works for it. But when you go to something like Dark Souls, and with Dark Souls 3 especially, the options available to you now in terms of how you can approach the game and what you can do, your loadout, and kind of and how you approach each enemy, and just the vocabulary of moves you have is so it's like so much broader than you get in something like Bloodborne.
I mean, they have definitely taken. They seem to have learned a few lessons from Bloodborne. I mean, for one, the characters in Dark Souls 3 that we just played, they tended to move a little bit faster. I don't know if you found that.
Yeah.
With the rolls and everything, they covered a lot more ground. And I don't know if people will warm to that particularly.
It's a much more aggro game than other Dark Souls games, and obviously Bloodborne was that kind of taken to its extreme. It's not as extreme as that. You can't go in, because there's not a mechanic obviously whereby you can regain health just by slashing in there. And so you still will get punished if you go in and flailing around.
But that said, they do seem to be moving away from shields, or trying to move away from shields, not forcing players to, but just giving them options aside from shields, which I guess is a good thing. But that's something that they did learn from Bloodborne, I think, or that was an ethos that was applied directly to Bloodborne.
Yeah, and you need to basically be more aggro. You need to rush enemies a lot more. Having said that, this is someone who's still, no matter what and how many magic options are given to me, I'm still going to just duel a great sword, because I don't have any imagination, and I just like tonking things on the head with a massive sword.
Yeah, well, same. But I mean, maybe once this opens up a little bit more, we'll feel differently about it. Another thing to note is obviously Miyazaki is returning to direct with this one, and I don't know about you, but I felt that even in the early stages of this game, that is immediately obvious in the environment and in the character design. Yeah,
totally. The environment itself is really dense and is incredibly detailed. And it's got that thing, the famous thing of Miyazaki games, where basically you can look somewhere and look, but if you see it, you can go there, basically.
They love saying that line in demos as well.
But more so with Miyazaki is the way it all interweaves. It's just like the way the levels interweave is so intricate, and also it's just really dense of detail. Whereas Dark Souls 2 was a really sparse game. It was like really flat and really expansive. Yeah, it just felt quite sparse. Whereas this, it's just super more claustrophobic, I think.
Having said that, I do hope, I mean, this area, which we've both seen a few times now, is very reminiscent of the Undead Burg in kind of the colour palette. I'm sure that will change. I mean, it's very clearly one of the starting areas of the game,
I'd say.
It's got more dragons, and I don't know, some of the statues and some of the assets from around the area. I mean, even the big bridge that you see at one point in the distance, that's very Bloodborne as well. But I'm sure that you get further in the game, we'll have a bit more variety.
You said the chairs are from Bloodborne as well.
I know, right? I had a thing about Bloodborne, like where they just decided to put all these chairs down for no reason, and the chairs seem to have somehow materialized in Dark Souls 3 as well.
People like sitting a lot in Bloodborne, they're doing Dark Souls as well.
That's true. I mean, as you said earlier, the chairs were a thing back then. That was a legit invention of the time. But yeah, I mean, I guess because Miyazaki said as well that contradicting elements is something that he really loves to sort of weave in throughout his games. And in this game, fire and ash definitely seems to be an overarching theme. That was at its most obvious in the boss of this area, which was the Dancer of the Frigid Valley.
Well, I'm remembering that.
Yeah, well, I wrote it down. So. But yeah, so she, and it is a she, I think, right? Like, because she's very sinewy, and she's very graceful, obviously, because she's a dancer. But when you start the fight, she has a flaming sword at the start. And when you get her to half health, which I did, she pulls out a second sword, which is an ash sword, and then she begins to dual wield. And she does the same thing as the Legion scimitars. The player can do with the Legion scimitars, in that she'll spin around.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't think the first part of the fight was all that challenging. But the second fight, I mean, once she had those two swords, she got rid of me pretty fast.
But stuff like that as well, I know it's a really small, obvious and kind of dumb a statement to make, but it just also spoke to the fact that this is current gen, basically. It's a Dark Souls game made for current gen, and that it looked really impressive. Obviously, the frame rate lurches all over the place. That's always going to be the way, I think, with these games.
Particle effects were with the ash kind of just...
Yeah,
just
but the ash floating through the air, and kind of the during that boss fight as well, as the stage slowly kind of sets itself alight. It's really impressive.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any direct capture. I mean, Namco, or Bandai Namco, provided us with B-roll, but not enough. But whatever.
That's a different issue, yeah.
But so hopefully we'll be able to show you what we're talking about at this point. But otherwise, in due course, we will be able to get direct capture. But I think it looks good, but I don't know.
I'm excited. It's not that I wasn't excited for Dark Souls 3 beforehand, because obviously it's another Dark Souls game and it's going to be great. But I kind of had that feeling of it's going to be a bit too overfamiliar. But now my excitement for it has been reinvigorated by actually playing it today and seeing some more of the systems kind of bed in a little bit more.
I do hope that they do. I mean, I'm sure that they will try new things. I mean, they've said, From has said that fast travel will be available from the start again.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, as in Dark Souls 2. Obviously, Estus, all that kind of stuff is back. Interesting thing about the Estus Flask, actually. When your character takes a drink, did you notice this? When the little icon, the amount of liquid in it actually depletes, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, I saw that, and then as you get down to like 3, it looks like basically, it looks more and more like a...
like
a
an empty bottle?
Like an empty bottle,
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
But no, it freaked me out a little bit, though, because I thought it was like its effect was
wearing
down.
off.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's just the number of swigs you have in it, but I thought that was kind of cool. They've also said that invasions will be the same. Obviously, it's quite early days now, so they haven't really gone into any of the multiplayer stuff, but I'm sure we'll look at that in due course.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it takes from Bloodborne in terms of stuff like Chalice Dungeons and that kind of thing. And it's going to be interesting as well to compare it, because we're going to be playing, with any luck, the DLC for Bloodborne.
Yeah. Oh,
this
yes.
week. If we're lucky, it might be on the show floor. And yeah, it's going to be fascinating to kind of go from one to the other in such quick succession. And we'll hopefully stay tuned for that later this week. I mean, it's Dark Souls, right? I think that we both love the Souls series. We will always be excited for a new one. But the thing is, as much as people love the Souls series and From Software, after each iteration, there will be diminishing returns, because we've seen this before. We know how it works. We know that the deeper you go into this game, that the lore is very gradually revealed. You have to deep dive on this. You have to be looking out for stuff. You have to be careful. You have to, we know what the series is about now, and unless they change that and do introduce new things, then it's just not going to stand up to the. It's always its capacity, its ability to surprise is always going to diminish, and that's kind of the one thing that marked the series out from the start. Because when Demon's Souls first came out, it was a huge surprise. It was kind of
completely
left field.
different.
No one really knew much about it beforehand, and it was just one of those rare games which is kind of. A bit of an unsung gem that kind of snowballed and then became this massive cult thing. And that was the same for Dark Souls as well. It is still familiar in some ways as well, and its capacity to surprise isn't quite the same as it used to be.
Yeah.
I don't think that diminishes its quality as a game, but it'd be interesting to see. I think everyone's going to be super excited to see what they do after this.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, because, I mean, at E3, Miyazaki said this is a turning point for the series. What that means, we're not entirely sure yet, but I think that after Dark Souls 3, we're going to see very new things from Software, and I hope so as well, because obviously they've got the talent. But yeah, so hopefully we will have more to show on this game in due course, but keep your eyes on the Eurogamer channel this week, because we will have more from TGS in due course. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, bye.
Hello, this is Chris Brett from Eurogamer, and this is Total War Warhammer, a game that I went hands-on with very recently and enjoyed an awful lot. Now, this video footage was sent our way by Sega and shows small clips from the battle that I played, or the demo that I played. Unfortunately, I didn't capture this myself, and you can tell that because this person doesn't protect their goddamn flanks.